So far we've been looking at lighting in a studio and lighting in an office environment. Now we're bringing it into a domestic location where there's far more interesting, I guess, production design to work with. But you mustn't forget the core skills of lighting. And one of the challenges of working in an environment like this, on the surface it might seem great, there's lots of stuff in the scene to make the frame look more interesting, but you've got to try and focus in on what's the important information in the frame. Today we've got the lovely Sam modeling for us, and we've got this lovely domestic location. But what's important here is making sure we focus on Sam and not get distracted by all this other stuff in the frame. Now, any of you who saw the FS100 tutorial that I appeared in will recognize this location. This is actually my dining room. And this is where James and I shot this interview. And what I thought would be interesting is to just have a look at what that interview looked like. Now, we did that on 2 cameras. We had 2 FS100s. We had 1 camera on a slider, just pushing left and right. Then we had a second camera just here on a tighter shot. Now, the slight difference with this is I can't replicate this exactly because the FS100 has a Super 35mm sensor. And of course the Blackmagic Cinema camera has a Micro Four Thirds size style sensor, so the crop factor on this against the Super 35 is quite different. So I can't replicate the exact focal length, but I'm using a 21mm CP2 here. I've taken the matte box off for no other reason. I just didn't want the extra bulk on the tripod today, and I'm not getting any problems with flare coming into the lens. So what I'm going to just show you now is how I lit that scene using only 2 lights. I used a dado light as a kind of kicker light, and I used a softbox. But just before we do that, let's just survey the scene. What we've got in this shot is daylight coming in the window from over there. So what we can do is set our camera to tungsten, which means that daylight will pick off the highlights of the white in the living room and turn them a little bit blue. So what we've actually got here is a sense of natural color contrast in the scene. So what we've also got in the corner frame is this standard lamp, which is tungsten. So by setting the camera to tungsten, the background goes blue and the lamp stays white. We've also got this big snowflake light up here. But what I'm actually going to do in this scene is turn that off. And the reason for this is I want to gain some control in the scene. So by turning this off entirely, I'm now starting with a degree of control in my frame. Now, the weather outdoors today is overcast and there's no sign of the sunshine, so I know that this light is going to remain consistent in the back of frame. What I've also got here now is the ability to look at my overall frame and decide on how much light I need to bring in. So I look at my waveform monitor here, I see I'm getting a peak over 100%, which is coming from this light frame here. If I wanted to reduce that down so everything was sitting under 100%, I've now actually got detail in the lamp here, the lamp here. My overall illumination in the scene has dropped down. So the first light I'm going to use here is my backlight. Now, the reason I always start with a backlight in a frame is that I want to start building up the layers of light as I go. I've set my ambient light level on the camera using the iris ring. Now, this isn't strictly speaking a backlight, because what we've actually got is the daylight color contrast between the tungsten and the blue of the daylight, creating a little bit of a bit of molding on Sam's hair. So this light here is going to come more into a side light position. One thing I want to point out here, at the angle and height the light is at the minute, you can actually see a shadow of Sam's head on the wall there, which might creep into our shot. So what I do is by lifting the light up higher, I can eliminate that shadow entirely. So it drops down below the table. And then I just use my barn doors to just make sure the light falls just on this side of Sam without it falling onto the table. The advantage of these barn doors is that I can actually spread the light out over the table if I choose. But I like to start by just working on this side of Sam's head and shoulder. So let's have a quick look at that. I think of lighting like this as painting. You're building up layers as you go. Now that's pretty dark. So I'm just going to bring the intensity of that light up. But that is starting to give me a nice amount of fill light on this side of Sam's face. So just so we understand what this light is doing, it's just bringing in a bit of side light. It could be motivated from a light that's out of the frame, as long as it feels believable. And it's just cutting Sam basically in half. It's lighting the side of her blouse and the side of her face, and it looks quite soft, even though it's a hard light source, because I've dimmed it up from 0, but not anywhere near full. The next light I want to bring in is a softbox to really create that Rembrandt style portrait lighting on Sam's face. So once again, I'm back to my trusty 150 watt softbox with the egg crate or the grid on it. And what I'm going to do here is just have a little look how that looks as is. Right, now I'm seeing that in vision, so I've got a couple of options. One is I can move the light back. And when you're lighting a female subject, you don't want too much in the way of contrast. You want to be able to see both eyes and keep the light nice and soft. Now, the intensity of that light is a little bit low, and the trouble is, I can't really give it too much more. So let me just try swinging the light left and right to get to the sweet spot. You see what's happening there? As I move the light off Sam's face, you get this hot spot in the middle of the frame, and you get a nice vignette off to the side. Now she is sort of pinging out of the frame, but the trouble is, I need more intensity. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change my shot slightly, because I don't really lose anything by going a little bit tighter. Because what I want to do is bring that light in closer, because at the minute, we're kind of losing her in the frame. We're only reaching about, what's that, about 40% IRE on the skin tone. We want it to be up near 55, 60. So by moving the light in physically closer, I can increase that intensity, and we start to see a bit better modeling on her face. So what we've got is a nice exposure on the right side of her face, but we're still seeing that softbox. So this is the problem, is we're trying to get the light in physically as close as we can without it being in vision. And this is where you sometimes have to modify your shot to make it work. Now, so at the edge of frame there, we're seeing the softbox. I'm going to move this camera slightly further in. What we're looking for is not just to light a beautiful frame, but actually to give ourselves a little bit of cinematic movement within the scene. And you don't need to move it very far, but you want to give it enough movement to engage the viewer. So that's our edge of frame there. I wonder if I can just pan the camera around. There we go. A lot of this comes down to just fine-tuning the angle of the light and the position, so you get the one part of the frame working. You know, all we're looking to do is get this frame to work. So I'm happy with the key light. I'm just going to go back and adjust this backlight. I'm feeling like this just needs a bit more intensity to help Sam pop out of the frame. I love the fact that on this particular fixture, the dimmer's built in. I like this for a backlight because I can just tweak things very gently and increase the intensity as I need it. Right, let's have a look at that one. Yeah, that's looking really nice. I feel what we've got here is a balance in the frame, and by lighting for the wide shot, we know that the close-up will work. In this scenario, what we want to do is perhaps put a third light into this frame. I'm going to bring a little dado in just for her eyes. And this is a really nice little trick when lighting women. Now what I can do just on the table there, Fred, is show you how small I can get this light. You see, I can basically pull it right back on the fixture and make it very, very small. So what I can do then is basically create a little shaft and just brighten up Sam's eyes. Now, if I turn off this softbox and just work on that light and turn off the backlight, because I want to see exactly what this light is doing. I'm just literally lighting her eyes. So it's just bringing a little bit of light from slightly lower down, because she's wearing dark eye makeup, add a little bit of fill into her eyes. Now, when we combine this with the softbox will blend everything, and then we put in the backlight. I can then just bring this down. I'm just trying to create a slash of light across her eyes. Let's have a look at that on and off. Almost. By just opening the barn doors slightly, I'm just letting more light out of the head. Yeah, lovely. So very, very subtle this, but you can see in the shot, it does make a difference. The key thing is just to make sure it hits our eyes and not a great deal else. But it does just brighten up. Sometimes in the frame, something changes. What we're seeing outdoors now is the top of a car, a white car. And as the shot tracks round in this position, it pollutes the frame. So the easiest thing to do is just change the angle of the shot slightly so that when we do track to this point, we don't see it. You find when lighting scenes like this, the time is spent just tweaking, getting everything looking right. You're starting to look at all the details in the scene. You know, is there anything in the scene that's distracting? Could I bring more into the frame that would just add to the scene? Slide that along. I think that's looking good. So that's basically how I would shoot this scene. The only difference when we did it with me was we wouldn't have had this eye light. But when you're working with female subjects, you really want to just have that little bit of zing in the eyes, and particularly if they're wearing dark eye makeup, just a little bit just helps to fill any shadow areas. So let's just summarize what we've done in this location. It is very much a mixed lighting location. We've got daylight spilling in all around the frame with tungsten lights in the scene. But by controlling the light, by turning off the ambient light in the room and bringing all of our lights in, we've been able to create the lighting we want and have full control. So we've put that side light in to bring into the left-hand side of Sam's face, which you can see on the right-hand side of frame here. We've got the soft key coming in from the other side and that little eye light coming in from the front. You'll notice there's very few shadows in this scene. And when you're lighting women, the less shadows really are, the better. They will thank you for it. I think she looks lovely in the frame. You're not distracted by anything around the frame. The outside of the frame is slightly darker than where she's sat. It looks very natural. And if you wanted to pull that into a color grade and add a little vignette around it, you could do even more. So very happy with how this frame is looking. You've got that nice little move if you want. Overall, very, very happy with that scene. So now I want to do another entirely different setup, but in exactly the same location, by just simply moving Sam to a different part of the room and lighting it in a very different way, just to show you that you can create lots of different looks in one location with fairly minimal equipment.